Mike Solan is the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild and knows all too well how protests can turn violent. When you see those images of violent protests coming from your city and others like Portland, what is your reaction? Let's talk about Seattle a little bit here, Mike. The mayor, Jenny Durkan, has said with Trump bringing federal officers into the city of Seattle, it's a dry run for martial law. You say what?
Well, I would say the dry run was what we saw with Chaz and Chop experience, where there was over 2 people dead and 6 people shot with multiple heinous crimes. But that's why it's so important for the ignored majority, the reasonable majority of Seattle citizens and the entire state of Washington and people across the nation to wake up to what's occurring. I need them to go to stopdefunding.com and help us, because they're looking at defunding us by 50%. And if you remove 50% of our budget, that's over 800 cops gone, which would make the Chaz Chop experience look like child's play, because crime will skyrocket. This is a major issue, and Seattle and Portland are the epicenter of unreasonable activism, political ideology, pushing a neo-Marxist agenda that has every one of us on edge. And last Saturday, we had 60 cops get hurt. And I have yet to hear a public official, an elected one, to show concern about the officers and their well-being. It's absolutely egregious what's occurring in Seattle.
Well, you may hear them, but they're certainly not. They don't have a D next to their name, because they're not. They're calling these things, and we're rolling pictures of this stuff. They're calling this peaceful protest, when we all know, logically, you look at that and you know there's nothing peaceful about that. I asked Ken Cuccinelli who these people are and who's funding them. Do you have any idea who you're up against? I know they're calling themselves Black Lives Matter, but I see Antifa. I see the Antifa flag way too much. Other agitators. Do you know who you're pushing back and who's funding them?
Well, absolutely. They're well funded. They're well organized. This is Antifa. And these are people that are holding our reasonable majority, the ignored majority, hostage by their political activism. But let's be clear. They're not a big group of people, but yet they have control of the public safety political discourse, not just in Seattle, but it's in Portland. It's in almost every major urban area where we're seeing this type of violence, criminal actions. And I've referred to it as domestic terrorism on my Twitter feed at Real Mike Solan. I mean, this is a serious issue that everybody in our nation needs to wake up. This is what's coming, and this is all about November. But sadly, cops are in their crosshairs or are being hurt. Like I just mentioned to you earlier, Eric, I had 60 people, officers, get injured. We're talking about improvised explosive devices, metal objects, wood, frozen water bottles, anything they can get their hands on to push their political agenda. You know, we must stop back.
Let me, and the reason why I'm doing this is this show is national. So we're going to be in hundreds of places around the country, cities, towns. Talk to the people right now who are watching what's going on in Seattle and Portland, saying, you know what, I agree with the right to protest, but what does this mean? And what's really striking me is your mayor, Jenny Durkan, was all for it until they showed up at her house. But what happens when this shows up on Main Street America?
What happens when they show up on Main Street America is that people are going to be expecting police to be there. But guess what? We won't be there if the Seattle City Council, the activist fringe, the majority, pushes forth their ideology and their activism by defunding us by 50%. There won't be a police officer there in a timely manner to help you. That's why what's occurring in Seattle needs to be on everybody's radar nationwide. This neo-Marxist agenda is coming to your doorstep, and I've said it before. They're no longer at the threshold of our doors. They've breached the door. They're inside. That's why if you want to help out, please visit us at stopdefunding.com. Got to get involved. Become the reasonable activists and push back against this political ideology.
Right. Mike, I have about 20 seconds or so, and just really be concise about this. How in the world do you train your officers to hold back when they have people, young people, pointing their finger at them and shouting names at them? Very quickly.
Well, we're consummate professionals. We did an oath of service to serve to the community. We're willing to give our lives in the service of that oath. And yet, even when we're besieged by this type of activity, we're going to continue to serve. That's the type of human being that police are. We're great people.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Mike Solan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.